Hey friends, I know it's been a while. I'm hopefully back in a more regular capacity. August was a struggle for me. Not only did school start, our bathroom sink broke for a little bit, and I've had some personal stuff going on. It was just too much, but I'm trying to get back into the things that I enjoy and find a way to balance work fun life. I am going to be doing my summer wrap up because I don't think I've done a wrap up since May. These are going to be my June, July, and August books. I'm going to do them by ratings, not by the order I read them. So lowest rated to highest rated, that way we can end on a high note. There are a lot of these, so I don't plan on doing a summary. I'll probably just do likes and dislikes. Let's get into it. I just realized that my stacks are not built the way I need them to be. It's okay. We can do this. I don't have any 1-star books. I do have some 2-star books. Some of them were like 2.75, but we're going to start with the lowest one, and it was A Clockwork Orange. I can appreciate the uniqueness of this book, and I understand why it would be a classic in some sense. This is the second time I've read it. I can never get past the slang that they use in this book. It just really takes me out of the reading experience. I can't, when I read, if I'm into a book, I will almost zone out and I'm not reading word by word. I'm just experiencing the book in a sense. And when there is something as dramatic as the writing style used in this book, I can't. I'm just reading word by word like the entire book, and it's not enjoyable for me. I also think there wasn't enough plots or likable characters to outweigh that for me. I then went on to a book I really wanted to like because the cover is beautiful. I will be unhauling the Diabolic. So, gosh, this book, it has royalty, which I love. There is a prince that's pretending to be crazy, but isn't really, and he was an okay character. Again, the way they talked, they'd be going along like normal teens, just chatting, and then they'd start talking like in like an older style. So, like, please come forth hence to my chambers. After like being online and chatting in the chat room, it just really threw me off. The characters were not great, and it was so predictable. There were like 3 twists at the end, and none of them surprised me. So I will be unhauling this despite the gorgeous cover. Another classic that I recently finished on audiobook that is my final 2-star was Death of a Heart. The Death of a Heart? The Death of the Heart. Some variation of that. It follows, a young girl who's falling in love for the first time. It had a Jane Austen adjacent feel, which I was enjoying. It was a little bit slower paced, but you were kind of seeing, things develop. However, the ending, it was so abrupt and unsatisfying that it kind of just made the slowness feel like I'd read this for no reason. There was no outcome. It wasn't like an unsatisfying ending, it was no ending. And so I felt like, why did I go through all this slow development? Not for me. Okay, let's get into my 3 stars. These are all books I enjoyed, but they didn't leave a resounding impact with me in any way. However, definitely still recommend a lot of these. There are a lot of good ones on this list. A few short story collections. I think I'm just realizing that short stories may not be for me most of the time. So this is Back Talk. It is a collection of short stories about women, their desires, their needs, their relationships, and there were a lot of short stories that I enjoyed listening to because I did listen to this one on audiobook as well, and I enjoyed listening to them, but when I was done, like, none of them stuck out to me. I think I read this in like July, end of June, beginning of July. I don't remember a single story. So I am going to be unhauling this as well. I think other people would get more benefit from it because I do think there are some good stories in here, and I think it'll have a bigger impact on somebody else's shelves. Okay, another short story collection, 40 short stories. This was a book I got in college, my classes, and there are some great short stories in here that I want to get copies of, but of the 40, I think there are like 5 that I enjoy. So I'm going to hold this on my shelf until I can get copies of the ones that I enjoy. Just not really enough for me to rate this extremely high, and once I get copies of the few that I do like, this will be unhauled as well. Okay, you're sensing a trend. Geektastic. Another collection of short stories. This is a collection of like your favorite authors writing short stories, and there were again some that I really liked, but not very many that stuck with me is the problem I'm finding. Okay, back to a classic next. This is The Secret Life of Bees. I really loved the like friendship and sisterly dynamic that you find in this story. There are 3 sisters that make honey that are just like, I love their style. I don't necessarily like the way some things were depicted in this. Again, it was a slower book than the plots. I'm a plot person, so if the character study type books like this are never going to be as high on my list. However, I did still enjoy reading this. I'd love to do more research on how this book has aged. Okay, Mask of Shadows is next. I felt like this is one of those books where like it was a good read and I really enjoyed reading it. I just wanted more. Like in every aspect, I just was like, if you had stepped this piece of it up, if you had stepped the assassin games up, if you had stepped the trials up, if you had stepped the friendships up, if you had stepped the lore up, like I just needed more in almost every single aspect. So it turned into one of those reads where I enjoyed it the whole way through, but it's not going to be in my top list, you know. Okay, this was a nonfiction pick that I had, Random Illustrated Facts. It was a fun read. I learned from it. I love the art style, but like a random facts book is never going to be in like my all-time reads, I don't think, just based on the content. I do recommend this. It's a cute book. It's a good one to have on your shelf, and it's a fun one to flip through. I very recently finished Romeo and Juliet. William Shakespeare, another No Fear Shakespeare. I cannot recommend No Fear Shakespeare enough. Like 5-star to No Fear Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet, I think, was an interesting read. It's one of the ones that I feel like I know the most about, but I'd never read. So that was a strange kind of experience going into knowing how things were going to end. I mean, obviously I can't be mad about spoilers on this. It's been around forever. But I think it did take away a little bit. Also, just thinking about the concept of this book as a whole, you know, like 2 very young teens falling in love in a few days, and the ending just takes away from the star rating a little bit. Can't be helped. Definitely a leap from that book to Binti, which again, just one of those books I wanted more from. It felt like a chapter in a book. I know it's a novella. I know the series continues. I have the second one on my upcoming TBR, so I'm wondering how that will work for me. I find things like Murderbot I really loved, so I was hoping to feel the same about this, you know, but I still suffered from, didn't feel complete. My last 3-star book, up towards the higher end of the 3 stars, was a graphic novel, A Spoon Too Short, Dirk Gently. This is a detective, definitely adult content, very bizarre. There are novels in this same series that I almost wish maybe I had read first, because I feel like a lot of his oddities are just thrown at you. Maybe they would be more fleshed out in the novels, I would assume. That being said, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was fun. I thought it was super unique. I'm excited to read the novels after reading this. Okay, next up are my 4 stars, and I have a lot of these, and again, there are a lot on that higher end of like 4.75. But first up is a middle grade that I read, Life on Mars. I have not been reading any author names. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna start here. Sorry. Jennifer Brown, Life of Mars. I thought it was just going to be a pretty straightforward kind of coming of age tale, which are not always my favorite, but there were a lot of like good relationships in this, and it just kind of like went a little bit farther than some of the ones that I've read so far, and I did like that. Not quite my style, along with some of the others, but it was still a good read. Little House in the Big Woods. I adore these books. I have read them over and over as a child. I've never read them as an adult, and I'm excited to. This one is definitely a 4-star for me. I just love it. I think as a kid growing up in Kansas, I could relate to the faraway, remote aspects of this, the outdoor aspects of this. Again, I know that there are some things in the series that have not aged well, especially some of the representation in the upcoming books. I don't think there were any in this book particularly, so that's something I definitely make sure to reflect on and consider as I move forward with these. It'll be an interesting experience to read them as an adult. Okay, my first super chunky one on this list, A Court of Mist and Fury. I did not expect to like this, I think because I read the first one so long ago, and just I remember not really loving any of the characters by the end of it, but I think this one was more my style of romance. I really fell in love with Rysand. I liked it. You know what I mean? Like, it's either your kind of book or it's not, and that's totally fair. I loved it. Strange skip, but all the way from A Court of Mist and Fury to the Iliad. My copy, for some reason, had a D-Day picture on the front. Not sure what that's about, but I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I think the translator, Stanley Lombardo, I don't know how many liberties he took, but there were definitely some phrases that he used that I was like, probably not how they said this. The way the gods talk to each other was hilarious to me. I thought it would be like a 3-star middle of the road for me. Definitely enjoyed it more than that. I loved the battles. The only thing I did not like was the fact that they had to tell their entire family tree from top to bottom. It felt very biblical. Definitely readable. I felt like my biggest obstacle going into this was that I did not think I would be able to comprehend it or understand it on my own without some outside source, like the No Fear style. But it's definitely more accessible than I thought it was going to be. Let's look at the Tea Dragon Society. High 4-star here. I loved the art. It is just adorable. Too short. That was the only issue. I wanted so much more. The way that they describe the dragons, definitely recommend reading, if you have this book, the back. Don't forget to look at each dragon type, because there's a lot of thought put into that, and it goes just so much deeper than what you get in the little bit of the story, but it's so adorable. It's so worth it. I, again, read this as a kid and loved the series. It was so magical. I forgot how, funny it was, and the shenanigans involved in this. So fun to read. Even as an adult, I think you can really enjoy this book. So definitely recommend picking it up, whether you've read it before or not. Okay, I read the 3rd Adventure Zone. The 4th one recently came out. I have loved all of these. This is the first one that I read the book after listening to this arc in the podcast. I definitely liked reading this and then listening, because it's kind of like when you watch a movie and there's just less in the movie, there's less in this than there is in the podcast. So going from this to the podcast, I was getting more information, getting little things that weren't in the book. Going the other way, you can tell what's missing, but I love it. Totally worth picking up. If you like D&D at all, it is just a great series to listen to and to pick up. The next one up is Dune. I finally finished it. I loved this. I can see why it's such a big thing. I think the only reason it's not just one of the top books was I didn't like Paul as much as I wanted to, or Jessica. Really, the 2 main characters just didn't sit with me. They felt a little bit just overpowered in a weird sense, and whiny. But I enjoyed the story overall. All of the side characters just had my heart, and the villains were pretty cool. So, yeah. Lord of Chaos. This is book 6. You get to see more of the villains overall, and I just ate it up. I think, again, slow middle, as usual, tabbed a lot. So yeah, it's been a solid series. Okay, these next two I struggled picking an order with, but I have Men at Arms. This is the second in the Night Watch series of Discworld. It starts with Guards, then it has Men at Arms next, and it's just adorable and fun, and I love the series. I love being a part of these books, as opposed to the ones where at the beginning where I couldn't sink into. This one I was fully immersed in. I really enjoyed the new characters. I loved the take on the trolls. It was really good. It was really good. And I ended up putting Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson like above that one, but just barely. I've read this before, but I read it back in high school, so it's been a hot minute, and I loved it all the same. I remember some key aspects, but there were still enough things that I didn't remember to really make it enjoyable. It has some great characters in here. Like, the way it all wrapped up just really hits me every single time. It feels so satisfying. Okay, I have one 5-star book. I wasn't surprised that this was a 5-star because I've adored all the book in this series. After Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I love Talia Hibbert. This is Grumpy Sunshine to the best. It always has great representation. It always has satisfying endings. It always feels so real. It is everything you could want in a romance. I'm excited to take a look at some of the other things she's written and see if they hold up the way that these books do. But there you have it. That is my summer reading list. Hopefully, I'm going to get back on track. I'm about to go film my TBR, so you'll see me in the same shirt. I'll change the lights just to switch it up a bit. But I hope you had a great summer. I hope September starts off great for you. And I'll see you later. Bye, guys.